This week on To the Contrary.
First, it's Congress's fault. It's federal policy. It's not a policy. It's zero tolerance. It's none of the above. The girl children harmed during the immigration fiasco. Then, few female celebrities running for office this year. Behind the headlines, important American companies adopt paid family leave. Will this become the norm?
Hello, I'm Bonnie Urbay. Welcome to the Contrary, a discussion of news and social trends from diverse perspectives. Up first, family separation and illegal immigration.
Where are the girls? How and when will families be reunited? Can Congress come together on an immigration bill? Just some of the many questions that remain since President Trump made a series of 180-degree turns in the face of protests and widespread condemnation of the administration's policy, that of separating children from their parents entering the country illegally at the U.S.-Mexican border. We will discuss how girls have different issues than boys when they're in detention. First Lady Melania Trump made a surprise visit to a child immigration detention center in Texas. That to visit the children and take part in a roundtable discussion with the staff. In an unfortunate wardrobe choice, the back of her jacket screamed, "I don't care. Do you?" President Trump said the First Lady and his daughter Ivanka influenced his decision to sign an executive order to keep immigrant families together. Late this week, the administration started dropping charges against those who had earlier been deemed illegal entrants to the country.
So, Congresswoman Norton, can President Trump ever make good to these children who are these thousands of children separated from their parents?
Bonnie, one can only hope for the resiliency of these children, because to go from trauma with your parents to the trauma of separation from your parents is to go from bad to worse.
I think we'll do the right thing, but we have to look at the children who during 2014, for example, and earlier when this policy was still going on and there were still separations, they ought to track and see what happened to the kids back then and see what worked and didn't work with them.
I think the biggest problem is we don't even know if we'll be able to reunite all the children. So I'm more concerned about the first step is we have to get people back together. The second step is we have to deal with their post-traumatic stress.
I think it's going to be very difficult for this administration to reunite these thousands of children with their parents. They say 500 children were reunited with their parents in May, but that's a small blip considering what's happened in light of the zero tolerance policy.
So let's start with the girls. Time magazine ran an article saying it's much tougher on the girls who are separated from their families if they're of age, have reached puberty. They need help with menstruation. They can be raped, much more likely than boy children to get raped. They get pregnant, etc.
You know the real horror? If you go back and look at this, the border guards will tell you the little girls and girls are being given birth control at the beginning of their trip because they know they're going to be raped. I mean, that is horrifying. Why would they ever take them on the journey? Those girls should never be brought on the journey by an illegal. Bring them in through the legal process. It's horrible. Birth control for very young girls. Unbelievable.
Well, they go on the journey because they feel they have no recourse, and I don't think any of us should question why a mother would take that trip knowing what we know and what I'm sure she knows. But these girls, this really bothers me because girls, even if they have fathers, are overly dependent on the role model for their life. Their mothers, so that the importance of keeping them at least with their mothers cannot be overestimated. So I'm much more afraid for the girls. Now I'm afraid for the boys too, because I'm afraid that many of these women are escaping with with only the mothers there. The issue, though, is that boys connecting with other boys and with masculinity may be able to do something about it, and then they don't have menstruation and the other life changes that come with adolescence.
The girls?
Look, I think there's just a lack of transparency at this level. The fact that we don't know enough about where the girls are being held or anything, so it leaves us to speculate that what is Customs and Border Protection doing? I'm not.
Which party's going to come out of this looking better? The Democrats? Have they overplayed their hand at all with these pictures and tapes, or the Republicans? President Trump doing about 3 or 4 180s in the last week alone.
At this point, I don't think either party leaves unscathed. This is where we are, and because of their inability to act, our elected leaders have not acted. That's why we are where we are today. Immigration could have been handled as an issue in Congress many years ago, and this was just part of.
But wait a minute,
is a shared frustration.
I think the Republicans control Congress.
No, certainly.
House, Senate, and presidency.
Certainly,
how in the world you can blame this crisis? And whatever happened in prior administrations could never be termed a crisis. How in the world you can say this crisis has to do with both parties?
The action
is why nothing can get done in the Congress.
Previous deterrents have been ineffective, right? And so it was the responsibility of both parties to come to the table and get something done. And I think for years and years.
But wait a minute. Here's the Congress is so polarized because the American people are polarized. So they elect people who represent their views.
I think
when commentators blame this on Congress, I always think blame it on the American voters. They're the ones who
don't vote out the people who aren't acting right. But
they vote for extremists.
In our system, it's very hard to vote out an incumbent. So it's very difficult to get the average American voter to understand that every 2 years these people are up asking you to get back to their jobs,
but
and they're not doing their jobs.
It's also voting in more extreme, particularly House members.
There is that element.
Particularly Republicans. I covered the House in the 80s, and they were there were no people like there are now that want to put the Bible in every federal law, and the Democrats have gotten a little more extreme in reaction too.
But
it was first
let me just
Newt Gingrich.
Go
and
back to your
Republicans.
original question: who's winning on this issue right now?
Mm-hmm.
According to the research that Pew put out on Wednesday. Now, granted, these surveys were done prior to sort of the most recent inflammatory actions. But what it showed was that Democrats had a 14 percentage point advantage when the issue that was talked about and sort of judged in the midterm vote going forward, it was about 14%. So Democrats are winning on this issue. Every minute of the day that immigration is a topic, Democrats are winning. Where Republicans win, according to this Pew research, is on the economy. There is a 9 percentage point advantage for Republicans on the economy right now. If I were a Republican, I would get off this issue and I would pivot to the economy.
Well, I don't totally disagree with everything you said. That is old polling. Some of the new polling shows the American people are actually saying it's the parents' fault, not the government's fault, for the separation.
Which poll showed that?
The most recent Rasmussen. The other thing past that, I'm going to quote Abraham Lincoln. As Abraham Lincoln said, the best way to get rid of a bad bill is to enforce it. And I think by this enforcement, maybe we'll now have the will in Congress for the two sides to come together.
But wait a minute, enforce what? Because I actually went back and read the statute. And the statute gives the power to decide whether to make it a misdemeanor or felony or any prosecution.
By doing the zero tolerance.
To the enforcement people, to the Border Patrol agents.
But by doing the zero tolerance and taking the most extreme position, you expose how the bill is not good. So hopefully this will give Congress the will to make the changes now. They certainly got scorched on it.
Let them be take. I can understand it. I can understand it because I really do think that's what's producing the reaction we have today. Mm-hmm. And it's an overwhelmingly negative reaction to the administration from the American people.
So you're going to get it done. I know you are.
We got to go. Let us know what you think. Please follow me on Twitter @BonnieOrbay or @ToTheContrary. From immigration policy to political candidates.
Celebrities are hardly new to politics, but celebrities who run for office are almost always men. Cynthia Nixon, who starred in the HBO hit Sex in the City seeks to change that paradigm. If she beats New York Governor Andrew Cuomo in next week's Democratic primary, she would be one of the first women to attain this high in office. Women are running and winning in record numbers in this year's primary season. But does a female star face additional scrutiny on the political stage? It's hard to say because there haven't been that many of them. In 2013, actress Ashley Judd considered running against Republican Senator and Majority Leader Mitch McConnell of Kentucky, but she didn't choose to run. In 1967, Shirley Temple Black lost her bid for Congress. If elected, Nixon would also become the first woman and openly gay governor of the state.
So why is it that celebrity women who do run or think about it, I mean, in both of those races, the Republican, Ashley Judd, for example, was never going to beat Mitch McConnell, and Cynthia Nixon doesn't have much. She's 20 points behind Andrew Cuomo, despite all his corruption, his administration corruption problems.
This is where I would advise celebrities to be a little smarter about where they run and who they run against. And this really gets to the bigger issue. I don't think that this is just a gender issue. If you look at all celebrities who have run, they too have had sort of credibility issues. You know, Arnold Schwarzenegger, in fact, had to sort of lead an initiative in the ballot in 2002 to essentially establish some political purchase and credibility, and he never would have won governor of California had it not been a recall election.
You don't think the credibility issue was cracked by Ronald Reagan?
No, Ronald Reagan
been wide open.
Wait a minute. Then? Ronald Reagan had been president of the Screen Actors Guild. He had been highly active in politics. He also, people forget this, but he, in the entire time leading up to after his gubernatorial term in California, he had a radio show that he essentially put out political opinions every single week. So Ronald Reagan is somebody who actually had a very serious ideological agenda. Whether or not you agreed with it, he really worked to create some credibility. And this is where I get annoyed with the celebrities that say, I know, let's go for the highest office and the most visible place, and I know nothing about this world, and I'm just going to jump in. The truth is they should get some experience, run for lower level office.
But the bar has been lowered by President Trump. He didn't know it.
It has.
And it's been chaotic in his administration from the start.
But you said it correctly. Reagan did crack the code. And he showed that you had to have more than just the celebrity. Schwarzenegger, too, because he was already an accomplished businessman. He brought more gravitas than the average turkey coming out, as a celebrity that wants to run. And in Trump's
was very
case,
popular. He got reelected.
Right. In Trump's case,
but
whether you think he's been a
so
success in business or not, the American people saw success, and they saw that he demonstrated through Celebrity Apprentice the way his management style was, again, whether you agree with it or not. So that gave him more gravitas than we would have normally. Cynthia Nixon cannot be taken seriously with some of the things she says. When she comes out and says, ICE is a terrorist group, give me a break. I mean, she comes out and says things that are so stupid that whether she had a chance or not, she's going backwards. Not good.
Can you think of a female celebrity who should run for president aside from Oprah Winfrey, who's not going to do it?
Look how much good sense she had.
Gina Davis.
What she understood is what apparently Cynthia Nixon does not understand, and that is the conversion of popularity with what you do to popularity in politics. Right. They take name recognition to be everything. Right. And I give all credit to the American people that they are holding people's feet to the fire, and they are not electing these celebrities. That is not a reason to hold elective office.
Well, how does that apply to the White House? I mean, you got a celebrity.
Well, the man was a businessman. I mean, it was not.
So, is there a businesswoman who's gone on TV?
Let me just say one other thing. We have
president?
elected many celebrities to the presidency, but they were called military war heroes.
Yeah, that's true.
So George Washington, Andrew Jackson, William Henry Harrison, Dwight Eisenhower. We can go through the list.
They were celebrities.
But they were celebrities
in their own right. They were.
in their
right.
time, that's actually what
Now,
gave
you're
them
right.
the name recognition to, in fact, mount their campaigns.
But isn't that a much more serious credential
it is. Of course.
than
Hands
being on The
down.
Apprentice?
And
Yes,
that's my point.
it is.
We have now confused what it means to be a celebrity. So in other words, you don't have to do much to acquire the kind of fame that those generals had.
By the way, Ulysses Grant, too.
Yeah.
I'm most disturbed by the fact that Kim Kardashian is considering a presidential run. I really am. I really am.
She really
but look,
isn't.
she may be in her head. She may, and that's fine. I think it's everybody's right to consider running for office, especially women who have high name ID. Why not? You should do it if you have
Because
the means.
she had, I mean, yes,
It's excellent marketing.
She's branded herself and marketed her brand to that extent, but
Look at the influence she had on
but
President Trump.
don't you think it would be hard? Yeah,
in getting the woman,
She has influence on anything she puts out there.
But
She doesn't
is
move the
that
market.
would she even if she had a big TV show, which their show is still on cable? I don't think it's on network.
Right.
So even if she had a TV show as Trump had before he was elected, would people give her credibility, and would that be the credibility they gave him? Or would they question her more?
It's apples to oranges, I think, at this point. But I think what really made people think was the fact that she took such a stance, went to the White House. Somebody like her was embraced by Trump, and she seemed to have an effect. So I think it's changing public perception about what it means to take your celebrity from Hollywood and translate this to the Hollywood on the Potomac here. But I just really think we're in a whole new era. Political strategists like me, we just don't know how to operate under these new rules because it's so different. Name ID is still a very big thing, but in Cynthia Nixon's case, for example, she might
Twitter following.
Yeah, the Twitter. What you're putting out there in terms of thought leadership, it doesn't have to be as substantive as the era of Eisenhower, for example, and that's what's winning.
Terrific. Behind the headlines, over the years, to the contrary, has debated the question why the U.S. is the only Western country without a paid family leave program. Many times. Now, a number of lawmakers and organizations from both major parties are proposing a variety of programs to address this.
78% of American voters want a national paid family leave fund. Katie Bethel, president of Paid Leave US, or PLUS, says support for a government-mandated plan is a step in the right direction, but not nearly enough.
Our goal as an organization is to win national public policy. We're never going to win public policy if we don't change the culture around what we expect in terms of leave for women. So that's what got us started on, okay, we're going to really look at companies, hold them accountable to have excellent paid family leave policy.
Earlier this year, in large part due to the influence of PLUS, two of America's pillar employers, Walmart and Starbucks, adopted some of the best paid family leave plans in the country. It was a major victory for PLUS, but the organization's leaders aren't satisfied. Their goal is a comprehensive government-mandated paid family leave plan covering all Americans.
I'd like to see a minimum of 12 weeks of paid leave that's paid at a higher level for people making the lowest amount of money, so that everybody can afford to take paid family leave. I'd like to see it cover the arrival of a child for any reason, and I'd like to see it cover personal medical leave and family leave.
One approach to paid family leave is the Family Act, led by New York Democratic Senator Kirsten Gillibrand. If passed, it would create a universal paid family and medical leave program for all workers, with 12 weeks of paid leave funded by a payroll tax on employees and employers.
So we need to make sure that we can put in place paid family medical leave, because we have to keep some of the most highly skilled and hardest workers in the workforce. Without it, we lose them.
Senators Marco Rubio, Joni Ernst, and Mike Lee are considering a plan to let Americans dip into their future Social Security benefits and use that money for paid family leave instead.
We haven't drawn up text yet for any one plan or another, but it is something that we are considering. I am hopeful that between the different ideas that might be proposed in Congress, we do find something that works for our families out across America.
The Conservative Independent Women's Forum, many of whose policy experts are our panelists, supports using early Social Security payments as a way to avoid an entitlement program.
We see this is a great way to help people who need it when they need it, but then also have some responsibility and say, you're going to face a trade-off. There's a cost for this, so to encourage people to use their leave efficiently.
Many people are unaware that last year's Tax and Jobs Act included a paid family leave plan. Originally proposed by Republican Senator Deb Fischer of Nebraska, the Strong Families Act gives tax credits to businesses.
It's a bill that offers a tax credit, and it really focuses on small family businesses so that they are able to offer paid family leave to their employees. It's a pilot program, a 2-year pilot program, so we can get some data and understand if it's really working, if this is something that would be of benefit.
Bethel says the Strong Families Act is not a national family paid leave plan. She says tax credits have proven ineffective in the past because in order to receive them, businesses must drastically change their policies, and few are willing to do so.
So who should pay for this? Everybody wants it. Nobody wants it out of their own pocket, obviously. Who should pay for this? Corporations, the government, the people who take the leave?
I don't think there's a perfect answer as yet as to who, right? But I think one thing that's been a faux pas for a long time to talk about is that this is a choice. To have a child is a choice in today's society, and it's about personal responsibility to some end. But there's something very important.
Meaning that people should be financially able to take care of their children without needing family and medical leave?
Not entirely. We have to strengthen the American family, and we have to do it for families of all types. There are not families that can afford that, but again, have a choice and a rightful choice to take a child, but or to have a child rather. I think it's time we think outside the box on this whole thing. All we ever talk about are incentives and mandates. Where's the in between? And it's high time. Well, my colleague Larissa Martinez and I have talked about this. She spent some time in the Senate working on an amendment that created something like a health savings account. It's portable, and you contribute to it with however much money you want, and employers can match your contribution. And even if you move on, it's something where everyone has skin in the game, the federal government, your employer, the person itself, and you can dip into it for anything that is covered under family leave, the FMLA.
Congress passed the Family Medical Leave Act. Nobody takes it. And the reason is because there's no money in it. And now we have another bad...
Well, California passed one that paid 50% of salary.
Yeah, well, this
and nobody was taking that either.
And that tells you everything about what you need to do. Now the Republicans in the House and Senate have come up with a truly bad idea. Trade in your Social Security for family medical and leave. What kind of cheap country is this? You're sacrificing your children for your old age. We can do better than that. We can do what every other Western nation in the world has done. Pay for this because you value your children.
Easier said than done, but I have to agree that I agree the Social Security idea, I think, is a non-starter, a bad idea. I like more the health savings account approach.
But we all know, just like health savings account, you get cancer, you're not going to have $500,000 in your health savings account.
Well, this would not be a health savings.
To pay for your coverage.
This would be
the same thing with
this would be a different one for leave. So I'm saying I like that idea better than the other. I didn't say it was the perfect answer, as you said. It's very hard to get there. My point, I guess, would be that as an employer, I've always had very generous paid leave, because I value my employees. They're my number one asset. And as the job market gets tighter and tighter, I think you're going to see more small business and others figuring this out, because they're going to lose some of their best employees if they don't. So there's going to be some market pressure. But I think you're right. We have to think outside the box, but also understand market pressure will come to bear. So how do we make it easier for employers to do it? They're going to want to do it more and more because they're going to lose people. And it has to be for elder care, not just child care.
Look, I mean, I would love for the government to be able to be doing this, but when I look at the fact that we have a $21 trillion debt and we have, deficits in the $1 trillion mark these days.
Mostly because when Obama left office, it wasn't, trillions of dollars.
Look, I look back to 2000 when, you know, Bill Clinton left
Right,
office, and we
with
were
the $300 million
essentially, yeah, we were essentially debt-free and very little.
We were debt-free, and
well,
we
we
had
were
a
not
surplus.
debt-free.
And
we
then
still had about
9/11
$4 trillion
9/11
debt,
happened
but
and
we
crushed the economy.
But I would also argue that while the Social Security plan is not perfect, the thing I do like about it is we're talking about extending your ability to get your Social Security benefits by about 12 weeks to 16 weeks. And
all right, we got to go. We're out of time. Thank you for that. That's it for this edition. Please follow me on Twitter and visit our website, pbs.org/to the contrary. And whether you agree or think to the contrary, see you next week. Go ahead.
Oh, no, I was just going to say that what it does do is it allows sort of a mother who is needing to care for a child, you know, a little bit of assistance when, my gosh, you know, by the time you're a senior, hopefully you will have at least